Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Scott Luton, Kelly Barner, and Ginny Froome here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Ginny, Kelly, how are we doing?
Great.
We're good. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Are those words really ever uttered?
Well, I think the question is whether they're really meant. How about this? I wish everyone a happy Monday. How's that?
That is right. Well,
Nearly
hey,
the end of my Monday, and it was a happy Monday, so that was good.
that is right. Ginny, you're 5 or 6 hours ahead of us?
Yeah, we're 7 p.m. right now.
7 p.m. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And hey, it is Happy Monday. If you love what you do, right? And I certainly love our collaborations together. And folks, Kelly Barner and Ginny Froome we got a big show teed up here today for the Supply Chain Buzz. I'm calling it the Special Deluxe Edition. It kind of made me think of John Travolta and Casino. No. What's that movie where they're driving down the road and they're talking about Big Macs in France?
Oh, Pulp Fiction.
Yes, Pulp
Yeah.
Fiction.
Casino Royale.
Yes.
With cheese.
Yes. So a little play on that. But this is the special deluxe edition. Not only do we have two special guest co-hosts, dear friends, Kelly Barner, host of our popular Dial P for Procurement program. Also, she leads over at Buyers Meeting Point and Art of Procurement, you name it. And Ginny Froome, who hosts our Dynamite Supply Chain Leadership Across Africa series. Also, COO over at SAPICS, which is doing great things across Africa. But Ginny, you're based in Johannesburg, right? You live in Johannesburg, right?
I am indeed, and it's finally summer.
I had to clarify that for folks, so folks didn't think you were just time traveling and just 6 hours ahead of the rest of humanity.
Just super specially fast.
So, all right. So you can't tell us winning lottery numbers or anything. Change
No,
our.
unfortunately not.
One final thought. We were talking weather, Kelly and Ginny, in the pre-show as we were getting everything fixed. And of course, Kelly in Massachusetts and us in Georgia along the East Coast, we're getting mid-20s temperatures. Kelly, what was your morning like this morning?
Is it that warm yet? It's 25 right now. It was in the mid-teens during the bus stop phase of the day. So very cold, but we sort of expect that. This
Right.
for you guys is probably extreme.
We don't know what to do with ourselves, Kelly. We really don't, other than not drive. But that's par for the course.
I know Amanda's listening. Amanda, this is when you put on your cute winter coat that you only wear like 2 times a year and your boots. That's what days like this are for.
I love it. But Ginny, across the ocean there, this is a warm. What are your days and weather like right now?
Well, it's very warm today, but loads of thunderstorms, and we've had masses of rain, which we're lucky in where we are. I'm not even going to attempt to talk about temperature because I don't understand your temperature scale, so I can't convert it. But it's warm.
Yes, we'll have to break out the protractor and do those conversions later. But hey, beyond Kelly and Ginny here today, we've got two very special guests joining us, Sally Eaves, PhD, and Kendra C Taylor, PhD. We're going to be talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, which are thankfully growing a lot more momentum, having a bigger impact. We still got some work to do there. And we're going to be talking about human trafficking, given that this is the month of National Human Trafficking Prevention Month here in the States, as designated by the White House. And there's a lot of work to be done to really eradicate these travesties of human trafficking and modern slavery. And Kendra's got some wonderful work, data-driven work that she's going to share that will offer up some resources for folks. So stay tuned. And hey, folks, we want to hear from you as well. We're going to say hello to all the folks that have been logging in here in just a second. So Ginny and Kelly, great show lined up here today, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exciting.
Happy Monday. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to make sure we're going to share a couple of events coming up in a second, but let's go ahead. I love saying hello to folks and kind of hearing what they're up to wherever they are in the world. Let's just do that. How about that? Josh Goody, he's tracking with us. A Royale with cheese. That's what I was after, Josh. Yes, Pulp Fiction. You love there's so many elements of that movie that's just classic. But yes, today's supply chain buzz is a Royale with cheese. And good morning and happy Monday to you. Gabriel Solomon is tuned in with us via LinkedIn. Great to see you. Hey, folks, if you hadn't already, let us know what part of the world are you tuned into. Let's see here. Jason T. Hopkins is back. Kelly and Ginny, do y'all know anything about Jason T. Hopkins sports related? Kelly, I think he may have appeared on last week's live stream. Do you happen to know what sports teams he's a big fan of?
I do not.
The Crimson Tide. He's a big Alabama Crimson Tide fan by way of Washington, D.C., though. He lives up in D.C. Ginny, you are smiling. Are you a big American football fan?
No. Foreign language, a bit like your temperature gauge, really.
Love that. Well, Jason, great to have you back with us here today. Gene Pledger is tuned in. IPPE. Now, Gene, that's a new one. Kelly, you're shaking your head. Do you know this acronym?
I do not, but he's happy to be there by the emoji. So it must be a nice place.
Okay. Gene, let us know. Fill us in on the joke. I love a good inside joke, and I hope to quote Michael Scott, I hope to be part of one day. But Gene, let us know. Mohib is back with us. Great to see you here. Good to see, he says, my new best buddies forever, maybe. Ginny, is that right?
I thought it was BFF, but maybe it's American as well.
Yeah. So, Ginny from the great continent of South Africa. Well, hey, Mohib, great to see you here. And of course, Mohib is dialed in from Wichita, Kansas, the air capital of the world. Kelly, Memory is back. I think you were on the live stream last week where she was dropping some knowledge.
Welcome back, Memory.
Right? I love that. Natalie Christian's back with us from Charlotte. Natalie, I think you're doing some hiring if I saw that right on social media. And I tell you, having known you'd be a great person to work with. So feel free to drop that in the comments. Claire, also from Joburg. Very proud of our
Joburg in the house.
Yes. So Claire, tell me about Claire, Ginny.
Claire works with us. She does our marketing.
Okay.
Has worked with us off and on for a number of years and is brilliant at what she does.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Claire, welcome in. We love what SAPICS is up to. Let's see. Mohib says, hey, hi, Kelly. My procurement and intake for peas went up after dialing peas. So a little inside joke there maybe, or a little something we were joking about a few weeks back. So Kelly and I, as Kelly dropped an episode on This Week in Business History about the father of the frozen food industry.
Clarence Birdseye.
Yes, Clarence Birdseye. Thank you very much. So we had a little friendly debate, fresh peas versus frozen peas. Because I'm a big Le Sueur pea right out of the can. That's what I grew up eating. And Kelly, you're like, no good, right?
No, because then you have to dirty a little pot. So I like the frozen peas in the steamer bag that go in the microwave. Don't come to my house for food. I'm not no, but I do love peas, and it was fun covering that business history episode, learning about the whole history. And now we just take the little bag right from the freezer, toss it in the microwave, and there's a vegetable on the table. Well,
Mohib, thank you for reminding us about the hotly debated topic of peas. Let's see here. Yogesh is tuned in from India. Great to see you via LinkedIn. Helmut is back with us. Great to see you, Helmut. I've really enjoyed your perspective via social and south of France. I can just, Ginny and Kelly, I don't know about y'all, but that just paints a picture, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Steven's tuned in with us. Let's see here. Josh, he's 38 degrees and rainy. Welcome to Seattle, Washington. I bet it does rain all the time up there. All right. So Gene, here's our acronym buster. He says International Production and Processing Expo in Atlanta. So a big event, I think.
Food processing.
Yes. Well, Atlanta hosts so many different events, but if Gene is there, it is certainly the place to be. All right. So Kelly and Ginny, really excited to be chatting with Sally and Kendra as we get closer here today. We'll be bringing them into the conversation here in just a second. And folks, we may be having a little bit of technical difficulties. Hey, Murphy's Law, it comes with the territory of live streaming, right? If we have them, we'll just work through it very transparently. We're here to offer up a great conversation, so just bear with us. Okay, so Ginny and Kelly, let's share a little bit of information about some upcoming events. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
All right, so Kelly, I'm not sure if you were with us, but last week we had Monica Trilsch here with Infor on a live stream with us, and she knocked it out of the park. so much so, she's going to be back by popular demand, February 1st, 12 noon, talking about harnessing that supply chain data. That is a beast sometimes to harness, right, Kelly?
It is. And I actually, behind the scenes, previewed the full video from that live stream that you guys did last week. Was it John she was with?
Yes.
I will not attempt to say his last name, but very interesting conversation. I think people will appreciate how they address the complexity of data. I think everybody will relate to it, but super interesting stuff about keeping it actionable.
Love it. Love it. Y'all join us February 1st, and there's a link where you can sign in for free in the show notes. Hey, join us in Vegas for the Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo. That's right around the corner. I want to say that is the 7th through the 9th. You can learn more at rla.org. And Amanda, if we could drop that comment, that link in the comments, that would be wonderful. While we say that, big thanks to Chantel, Catherine, Clay, and Amanda behind the scenes on the production side, helping make today's show happen. And then Kelly and Ginny, really excited. Nominations are open for the 2022 Supply Chain and Procurement Awards, a global event. And we're going to touch on one of our newest partners, thanks to Ginny, here in just a second. But Kelly, what are you excited about most about the Skippies, as we have casually coined?
So I think the thing that I'm most interested about, we have a number of awards defined, but one of them is the Unsung Hero Award. And I am very excited to not only get to read all of the applications and nominations for that particular award, but I can't wait to connect with the person that is selected as the winner. I think that will be a very good news story that we'll all be able to celebrate. Agreed.
So folks, y'all can learn more at supplychainprocurementawards.com. And again, hey, great thing about nominations, and we're going to talk about a great partner event here in a second with Ginny. But the nomination fees, I think it's $200. All that gets donated to our nonprofit friends at Hope for Justice, which are they're on a mission to eradicate modern slavery and human trafficking. So really excited about that. So it's a win-win-win, right? It's when you nominate, those fees get donated to a purposeful organization that's taking action. And while you do that, we're going to celebrate all the cool things that's happening in your organization. And folks, wherever your organization are, wherever the individuals are for like the award that Kelly mentioned, it doesn't matter. There are no borders for this event. Y'all nominate often, and we look forward to celebrating that. So I'm going to say hello to a few folks really quick, Ginny, and then I want to talk about the Africa Supply Chain Excellence Awards, right before we bring in our guest. Jocko is back with us. 2022, the focus is on supply chains. It's our time to step up, as he says. Ginny, we agree, right?
We do. Hey, Echo.
Nerf is back. Nerf, great to see you. I always look forward to your contributions here. Let's see. Kaltar, I believe. If I got that wrong, please let me know. Try to get all the names right. We'll be talking about probably some non-procurement stuff. Hold your ears at Kelly. I bet that's like being nose on chalkboard. But I would strongly urge you to connect with Kelly. Check out Dial P, check out Art of Procurement and Buyer's Meeting Point, and for a lot of conversations like that. Stacy, hello. Roger, hello. Great to see all of y'all here today. Okay, so Ginny, really quick, tell us about the Africa Supply Chain Excellence Awards.
That's well done. You got it right. That's exactly it. So we want to celebrate supply chain excellence on the continent of Africa. It's a huge undertaking because we all know there are many, many different countries and many, many different supply chain issues across the continent, but we've got to start somewhere. So we've got a really good mix of supply chain associations. The idea of it is it's for the industry, by the industry. No one organization owns it or runs it or sort of dominates it. And the idea is exactly that, is that we highlight what's great on the continent of Africa, and there is a lot of great stuff. And Yako, who's here today, is one of those examples of the work that he's doing.
I love that. We've got a link, and I love that it's not all are welcome, right? No special interests. It's there to celebrate achievement and community and all the hardworking organizations and teams out there making it happen, right, Ginny?
100%. And, you know, ultimately, we hope to be able to create bursaries out of this, to be able to bring young professionals into the supply chain arena. And just education is key, community is key. And that's really the core focus of what we're working towards.
Love it. I love it. Big fans. And we're really delighted from the 22 Supply Chain and Procurement Awards to establish a partnership with the Africa Supply Chain Excellence Awards as we try to lift up all the organizations together. It's tough to put on these awards shows, as we all know, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, really the work that you do to highlight and spotlight Africa is really just so much appreciated by so many of us, not just me.
Well, we appreciate that. It takes a team, takes a village. I think Greg said he always hated that phrase. I think it was Greg, but it is so accurate. So Ginny, look forward. And folks, we've got the link here, ascea.co.za. Is that right, Ginny?
Yep, ZA or ZA, depending on your translation.
That is right. I like how you pronounce it a lot better. So, Amanda, if we can drop that link in the chat, that would be wonderful, and we'd encourage everyone's involvement. Okay, so we're going to be getting to our speakers, but really quick, I got a couple of quick factoids. I know, Kelly, you and I both are trivia geeks. Can I say that about you too?
Absolutely, especially history trivia.
Okay. Well, I've got two little factoids I want to share with folks. The first one comes, so last week we heard from our dear friend Sylvia Judy, right? Big friend of the show, but also one of the biggest ambassadors for the port of Charleston, right? In South Carolina. Now, all the East Coast ports seems like have been growing for quite some time. Charleston has been growing as well. I think they've also deepened, much like we've done in Savannah here, where the harbor's been deepened. They've done the same thing to allow bigger ships. Well, get this. So big news, 1.29 million 20-foot containers came through into the port of Charleston in 2021. Ginny and Kelly, that is a 25% increase over 2020. How about handling that type of additional volume, huh?
Just incredible.
That's incredible.
It really is. More options. What that tells me, and you know, Charleston's not only port growing. There's lots of great ports doing and a lot of inland ports that are doing big business. But it gives our hardworking supply chain practitioners a lot more options. So, congratulations to all the folks making that growth happen and executing on it in Charleston. That comes to us from the Wall Street Journal. Ginny and Kelly, have y'all ever signed up for the logistics report from the Wall Street Journal?
Yes, it's excellent.
It really is. And I'm not sure if there's a subscriber fee or not. I get an email from Paul Page, in the team, I'm sure, every morning. And it's just a great list of some of the things you need to know across really global business. Ginny, you ever check that out?
Yeah, they do lots of good teasers on Twitter.
Yeah.
Which get you excited, and then you can't read the whole article. So you actually have to do it.
All right, one more quick fun fact here. So did you know on January 25th, 1993, Sears would announce that they would no longer be publishing their catalogs. So, you know, long before Amazon, right? You get everything you want on a website. That was a Sears catalog, right? Whatever. In fact, you could order a house via the Sears catalog way back when. So we grabbed a couple images here. So on the left is one from clearly earlier in the catalog's times. I don't see a date on there. But then the one on the right, we capture what I believe is the final Sears catalog published. So kind of a snapshot in time. As Ginny Froome is our time traveler, a little snapshot in time there. Did you ever order anything? Final question before bringing our guests, Kelly and Ginny. Y'all ever order anything from Sears?
Nope.
I don't think I did either. Kelly?
Not from the catalog. We had a lot of stores locally. I do remember, though, going to Sears, and if you ordered something big, they would send you to the other spot, and the box would come down the rollers. So that was kind of a neat thing if you ordered, like a biggish kitchen appliance that they didn't have out on the floor. That was very exciting to a little kid. So that I have on memory now.
What a great, man. You're just chock full of stories.
I was logistics oriented even back then. Like,
yes.
look, it's rolling down the
So I never ordered anything from the Sears catalog, but I did. My first ever credit card, I'm probably telling too much information, was Discover. And I think Discover and Sears had a big thing. So my first college stereo, that 3-disc changer. Yeah, that came from Sears
Wow.
on the credit card, and I got a lot of mileage. I won't tell y'all where we use those CD changers, but adult beverages may have been involved. All right, a lot of good stuff here. And Jose, great to see you. Love your shows and your programming. Tuned in via LinkedIn from Southern California. Great to see you. Okay, so we may only have one guest here today. Looks like one of our guests got caught in a firewall issue. If she breaks through, we'll introduce her and we'll keep on driving. Hey, Murphy's Law is alive and well. But we've got a fantastic guest in Kendra C Taylor, PhD. She's president CEO with KEYfficiencies, also volunteers, does some great work with a group called Informs. And with all that said, I want to bring in Dr. Taylor. Hey, Kendra, how you doing? It is so good to see you. Now, you're in the Atlanta area. Is that right? Uh-oh, we may have a technical issue. So, Kendra, if you can hear me, can you hear me? No. Okay. All right. So let's do this. If we can swoosh Kendra back out, let's just make sure the right speaker settings are there. And Clay, a minute, if y'all could help me out here, and then we'll swoosh Kendra back in. So, Kendra, we'll see you in just 1 second.
And
Ginny, you were saying something.
Oh, sorry. In the meantime, Ahe Moho, as is his true nature, is keeping me honest and saying it's 72 degrees Fahrenheit in Johannesburg, South Africa. So thank you very much for the translation. I really appreciate it.
He is Johnny on the spot.
He is.
Mohit.
He is.
And let us know. Well, Nerf's giving us a weather report too. 72 degrees. And Nerf, where are you at? You're in, I want to say Nerf's in Michigan or Canada, one or the other. Michigan or Montreal, one or the other. So Nerf, clarify that. 72 degrees. That can't be Canada, Kelly. It's got to be colder than 72 there, right?
Well, but he's saying Kelvin. Isn't that another Fahrenheit, Celsius, whatever you call those? Scale? Temperature scale?
Something confusing.
Through almost 1,000 episodes, hasn't anyone picked up the fact that I'm horrible at math? Or math always called around here. So
even weather's math now.
No kidding, isn't it though? But Nerf, thank you very much. 72 Kelvin there. Let's see. All right, let me check a note here. All right, so Kendra, I'm hoping that we have got her audio set. Just a heads up, folks, sometimes you just kind of see how the sausage gets made, and these are one of these moments when connections and technology go wrong, you do whatever you can to fix it. So Kendra, if you're using the earbuds, there's a little option that you have to select that your speaker are their earbuds. Rather, if you don't, it'll pick up a different speaker on your PC. That may not be the issue, but just a little heads up there. And we're going to try to bring you in again. And Kendra, there might be other folks on the line. So maybe, I don't know, Kelly and Ginny. You know, my
kind of ooky spooky.
It is kind of ooky spooky. I've never heard that phrase.
Maybe that's a Boston thing.
Maybe a Boston thing.
Of course, I also don't watch scary movies, so that's sort of like the 6-year-old version of other people probably have grown up scary words. I don't do scary movies, so ooky spooky is about as far as I go.
All right, so I gotta visit Boston and check out all these Bostonisms. All right, Ginny and Kelly, we're gonna try this one more time with our dear guest, Kendra. So again, I want to welcome in Kendra C Taylor, PhD, President CEO with KEYfficiencies. All right, Kendra, can you hear us? Wonderful. Now you're on mute though. So let's hit that mute button. We'll be all good.
All
Kendra.
right. I can hear you. Good afternoon.
Great to see you. Good afternoon. Really enjoyed our pre-show conversation a week or two ago. Love the work you're doing on a variety of fronts. And welcome to the Supply Chain Buzz.
Thank you.
All right. So, hey, really quick, before I turn over to Kelly, as we work through before I turn over to Ginny, See, sometimes I create my own curveballs around here. But Kendra, really quick, we got a few extra time since Sally, I think that firewall issue is going to get her. You're in the Atlanta area. Is that where were you born and raised in Atlanta? If not, where?
No, I have been in Atlanta for about 20 years now. I was born in Los Angeles, so I've moved across the country from the West Coast over to the East Coast, and I do like it here.
Man, LA. What was it like growing up in LA? Goodness gracious.
Well, I partially grew up in Los Angeles and partially grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. And those are two very different worlds. One you could say was more liberal, the other quite conservative. So I
Right.
have seen the best actually of both. I really enjoyed growing up in Salt Lake. I thrived there, and also enjoyed going back to visit family in Los Angeles. So I'm in Atlanta, and family has moved to Atlanta, so Atlanta is home.
I love that. Well, we all get native badges, I think, after like 10 years. So you're part of the community now. But Kendra, I love that. LA, Salt Lake City, and Atlanta, three incredible towns. And Atlanta is such a special place to do business in. All right. So Ginny, where are we going to start with our dear friend, Dr. Taylor?
Well, first of all, I just think that it's brilliant that we're actually even talking about this subject that is so insidious and so hidden in so many supply chains. The human element and the abuse of I think you said something about 30 to 40 million people whose lives are being violated by human slavery, trafficking, etc. I mean, that's just a staggering number. And someone once said, supply chain is everything. So if we're going to solve any of the problems in the world, we have to start with our supply chains. And isn't that really what we're looking to do? And you're doing it through analytics and all the really clever research. And I just wanted to know more about what it is you're doing to be able to give people like me the information I need to inform me, to inform my colleagues, my children about, I don't know, how we need to be more conscious consumers.
Sure, absolutely. So I actually got into this area of human trafficking from the sex trafficking side. There was a report that came out from the Urban Institute in 2014 that identified Atlanta as a hotbed for sex trafficking of children. And through various networking opportunities, I was introduced to the juvenile court judge who rang or sounded the alarm on the issue. And from there, learned about the greater picture of human trafficking. Sex trafficking makes up, I believe, about 25% of that 40 million. And so you have a lot of issues with labor trafficking, overseas labor trafficking here, even in the United States, with people bringing over individuals under false pretenses in order to indoctrinate them into servitude and removing their forms of identification and threatening them and keeping them in harsh conditions in order to keep that lower cost labor here. So we have those, and then also, here in Atlanta, as well as other places, you have the situations with the spas or institutions that go under the name of a spa.
Right.
Where they have individuals who have been brought here also under false pretenses and don't have the ability to leave. So,
Really,
the
really
issue
quick,
of
Kendra,
human
really-
trafficking, it really falls into two types. You have the sex trafficking that I mentioned, and then the labor trafficking. And the approach to addressing them, it differs. With the labor trafficking and the supply chain, the commercial supply chain, you have all kinds of global issues. You have poverty, you have discrimination, you have immigration, unregulated labor markets, various unsafe working conditions,
right.
Workers that don't understand their rights. And then you have incentives for corporations to have lower cost labor and to do whatever they need to do in order to keep those migration channels for migrant workers open. And then also there's, as you mentioned, a bit of invisibility. As a consumer, many times we don't know the full supply chain. And so analytics is being used to uncover the full supply chain so that the end consumer, the buyer, can be aware. In both cases of sex trafficking and labor trafficking, you have buyers who are unaware or uninformed
Right.
of what is really going on, what they're really buying into. And so taking the veil off and allowing people to get a better understanding of that full supply chain is part of the focus that I have, a buyer awareness. So because if there's no demand, then there reduces the need for that supply.
So really quick, let me chime in for just a second. And Kelly, I want to get your take before Ginny continues on two things. You know, the invisibility that Dr. Taylor is talking to, that you just don't know. Just a month or so ago here in Georgia, there was a news story that hit. Kendra mentioned the migrants that are part of the agricultural workforce. Well, a farm was busted. I don't have the story maybe exactly right, but a farm was busted down in South Georgia because, as I understood it, they were keeping people and forcing them to work on the farm, not letting them go and do as they choose. I'm thinking like 2022, what in the world? And then one other thing I want to get your take on, Kelly, is what that last point that Kendra mentioned. When you can attack demand, how supply will follow. And I hate to put it in those terms because it might sound a little bit callous when we're talking about trafficking in modern slavery. But Kelly, your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, my thought naturally, but I also think logically in this case, goes back to what procurement can do. And I don't think it matters if it's a B2C company or if it's B2B. There is so much data. There are so many solutions available that will help us figure out who are we working with that might be at risk. And we need to know beyond, we talk about tiers of the supply chain. So your first tier suppliers, those are the ones you pay directly. Their suppliers are my second tier. And a lot of times, depending on the supply chain itself, it's happening multiple tiers deep. But with the digital technologies that we have available to us today, there's no reason that we can't be running all of the companies we currently work with or that we're evaluating. And truthfully, Kendra, I'm sure you would agree with this. It does not matter if it's the chemical or the food product that goes into the can and that we sell, or if it's a company that provides cleaning service or facilities maintenance or absolutely anything that gets used on a corporate level. Anything that we allow to exist in the supply chain that in any way is allowing human trafficking to continue is unacceptable. And procurement certainly can play a strong role in looking for that and monitoring it at scale on an ongoing basis.
Excellent point. And one last thought, and I'm going to throw it back over to Ginny as we continue with Dr. Kendra Taylor, is the consumers. We're all consumers. We all may not be, across all the folks tuned in may not be supply chain practitioners, and that's perfectly fine. But we're all consumers, and it's really our duty, I would say, to be more educated on what we're supporting with our purchases, whether directly or indirectly. All right, so Ginny, let's pick back up here. What your response, and let's keep going with Kendra.
Yes, I think Memory's made a comment, and I think that that's a really valid comment, is that the value of any company lies with the company it keeps. And I think, that's kind of the basis of what it is we all need to do. And if procurement can help at the beginning, then that's a great thing. And if blockchain can help with the transparency, then that's something else. But in the recent article that you published on this topic, and I listened to it before we went on the show, and that's where I got that horrific statistic of the number of people. What are a couple of key themes that run through the work that you're doing, and just what you're finding out, and the information that is contained in all that research?
Well, a lot of the research is focused on supply, on the supply side. There's a lot of research about finding, identifying, locating those involved in supplying goods through human trafficking. Not as much work has been done on the demand side. In labor trafficking, there are websites and there is analytics being used to create or understand the full supply chain. So that is just beginning. I believe it's definitely less than 10 years old in terms of the use of analytics to track the full supply chain and to inform buyers about the supply chain and where the goods that they're purchasing are really coming from. I would say that the projects, so to speak, that excite me the most and that my work is focused on is buyer awareness and encouraging the analytics community and the corporate community to be more cognizant of the supply chain and creating that transparency to break down that wall of invisibility that we talked about previously.
Yep.
And there have been, there have been some significant breakthroughs, haven't there, with various well-known manufacturers who have actually closed down suppliers' factories because of exactly that, the abuse of the workforce. And I think, obviously largely through data and information and education by people like yourself and conversations like this, and just constantly creating that awareness. And, I'm ashamed to say that it wasn't until we had a speaker at one of our conferences 2 years ago talking exactly about this, that I really had stopped and thought about it. And I'm quite sure, I'm not alone. And education is the root of everything. And if you can back it up with fact and data, that's so intrinsically vitally important.
Kendra, why don't you respond to that? And then I'm going to share a couple quick comments from our skyboxes.
Sure. I think the point made earlier about blockchain is definitely a turning point in terms of improving transparency, having that common ledger. And so that is something that analytics is definitely useful and appropriate in facilitating. I'm excited about that ledger, that open ledger and shared ledger of blockchain technology being something that a few years from now you can easily, maybe scan the QR code on something that you're interested in purchasing and see, the full supply chain, or see if it's good, or if it has some sort of a seal of approval, so to speak, or what companies, kind of like a Whole Foods, where they in and of themselves have made a commitment to procure goods from ethical means, then having that be a part of the supply chain, that visibility, that transparency being a part of the supply chain.
Well said. And procurement, Kelly, going back to your point you made earlier, it's so critical to be part of the conversation, part of the action, and thankfully, procurement is seen more and more. And Kelly, I love your thoughts here, and then I'll go to share Jason's comments here. More and more, they're having that seat at the table, right? They're being part of the strategic conversations related to supply chain, right? That's great news, right?
It is great news. And first point, you can't get through an episode like this without talking about procurement. So this is perfect. But, I think what's interesting is that very few companies actually start supply chain mapping for the sake of something like human trafficking, despite how important it is, or even sustainability. What tends to happen is that they start mapping out their supply chain for the sake of plain old traditional risk management. We don't want disrupted supply.
Right.
But the thing is, once you have that map done, and once you have sort of the conduit for data flowing back and forth, those multiple tiers, like I talked about, into the supply chain, people start to realize not that it's easy, but how much more feasible it becomes to look into human trafficking, to look into sustainability, to start looking at things like, what's our tier 2 or workforce diversity. Once you build out the basic data flow and infrastructure, just simply to stop disruptions, which every single company wants to do because they're costly and
Right.
bad for business. But there are so many things you can layer on top of that. That's where some of the real value-oriented ROI starts to come into, yes, it's expensive to map. Yes, it's expensive to build out these systems and track all of this data. But there is so much you can do once you have it in place. It's absolutely critical.
Including the right thing, right?
Including the right thing. Yes.
Yeah. Love that. All right. I got to share a couple of these great comments here. Memory says the value of any company lies in its reputation and the company it keeps. Memory, keep bringing it. I love it. Max is back with us from Mexico. Max, great to see you. Hey, it's okay. You can be late here. No one's going to hold that against you. Let's see here. Memory is also saying increased visibility will definitely flush out all the hidden ethical issues in the supply chain network. Yes, there are more things we definitely need to flush out. This comes from, I believe, Korai, our dear friend Korai Koze with Gartner,
Hello, Korai.
Kelly. He has agreed just in the last week or two. We got it finalized. He's one of our executive judges, which is wonderful. Right. He says, super important topic to cover. We talk so much about making conscious decisions everywhere. Do we, though? In the stuff we eat and use? Take a second to check before you buy. And as Kendra was saying a moment ago, blockchain and other technologies are going to make it easier and easier to get to study up right there in the moment as you're checking out something from the shelf. That is a wonderful development. Jason, here's Jason's comment now, and then we'll go back to our panel. Jason says, I agree. Evaluation of procurement process can mitigate human mistreatment practices. So how can supply chains do that more effectively without punishing their profit? Can that be something addressed at the higher educational level more effectively versus on-the-job training that costs the company? Great questions there. Kendra, any thoughts there? Oh, Kendra, we might have lost your audio again. Kendra, can you hear us? Okay. We're going to keep driving then. We're going to keep driving. Jason, we're going to circle back to your questions in a moment here. All right. So
I was just going to make a quick comment on that, in that I really, honestly, education is the root of everything. And if we as adults and the next generation can continually be encouraging these schools, universities, etc., to change curriculums, to bring this information in, to have guest speakers like Kendra, to just continually raise the awareness, then the next generation of young professionals have already got a head start, and the company that employs them has a head start as well. Right. So, the root of it all is education. Agreed.
Those are great ideas. And we're going to see if we can't get Kendra back in just a second. Kelly, any additional thoughts along those lines that Ginny shared?
Absolutely. Well, the comment that you just had up, I believe it was from Jason, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
He talked about how companies can do the right thing without it damaging their profits. Yes, thank you. This is really hard because some industries are almost reliant upon some of these illegal practices or unethical practices that are just far enough away from them that maybe they don't know it's there. When it's systemic like that, that's very difficult because in order to do the right thing, as we were talking about, you do have to elevate your costs. I think, however, we also have to think about what is the cost of these practices being uncovered. It would be intensely difficult for a brand to recover from something coming to light, even if it's 3-4 tiers deep. I mean, I know the garment industry struggles with that. A lot of different places globally will have forced labor, women and children. And every once in a while, they raid one of these facilities, just like happened at the farm in Atlanta, Scott. And it doesn't matter how big your brand is or how far away from you in the supply chain. That is very negative PR if your labels turn up in that factory. So what, in fact, is the cost of that? I think it's a short-term game versus a long-term game. Yes, it may eat into profits, but it's a very risky play to keep those profits larger by allowing unethical practices to continue someplace in the world.
Agreed.
Great
A lot of great
point.
comments there. Really quick, I wish I could remember the name of the clothing company that offers on their website. Gosh, this can drive me crazy. It's going to hit me like as I grab lunch this afternoon, halfway through the sandwich. That's the name of it. But they offer a portal so you can view their production lines anytime you want via their website to kind of really open up and offer that transparency and that visibility into how their stuff's made. I'll think of the name. Okay, so Kendra, I'm going to give you a nonverbal cue. We may be having some issues there. Your thoughts, Kendra.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start talking. I can't. Okay, great. I can't hear what you all are saying, but I'm getting some cues. I would say that regarding the cost of uncovering human trafficking practices, many organizations have put out policies, corporate policies, indicating that they do not tolerate that type of activity in their supply chain. For Hewlett Packard, for example, has created that type of a policy. And, enforcement is a different animal, but putting that there, making it as explicit as possible for workers to have access to and to see how it relates to their day-to-day work environment is helpful. I think that many organizations know. I think in the shrimp in the fishing industry, they know that children are being used. Even the parents of the children know that their children are being used in this type of an environment. And one of the challenges is that even this is the same type of decision-making challenge that teenagers have. Number one, they don't think long-term. And then number two, they don't know other alternatives. So if the only alternative for a poor family is to have their child work in a harsh environment, then that is what you see. And then you have, it becomes a win-win in the short term for the corporation and for the family. But longer term, it is not necessarily so. And so that's why human trafficking, labor trafficking, is such a complicated challenge. In both types of trafficking, the actual person being trafficked may be okay with the setup in the short term because they see a short-term benefit. But in the longer term, that is where you have some of the harsher penalties and challenges. So just speaking to the costs of uncovering that, I would say they don't outweigh the benefits of being known for being a socially responsible corporation and having that impact, particularly as the general public catches wind of what this organization is a part of, and having that be a stain on that corporation's brand is not as significant. So it does behoove all organizations within a supply chain to do the right thing.
Well said. Very well said. And you may not can hear me. Can you hear me, Kendra?
I can hear you now.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. All right. So I want to get to the resources. And Ginny and Kelly, bear with me just a second in case we lose audio with Kendra. I want to get this out and then we'll bid adieu. But Kendra, how can folks connect with you? How can folks reach out and view your Informs research and find out more about KEYfficiencies?
Sure. So Informs has several outlets for individuals to engage. The first is just to visit informs.org and follow Informs on social media. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram are all outlets where it's INFORMS, Informs. It stands for the Institute for Operations Research and the Management Sciences. For me, my email address is kendra@KEYfficiencies.com, or you can go to KEYfficiencies.com. And also you can sign up with Informs to receive updates. If you know of a nonprofit organization that is looking for analytics support, we do have the Pro Bono Analytics group within Informs, where we do short-term consulting projects to bring analytics to nonprofits for free.
Love that.
And I
love
can't
that.
hear you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank
you
you.
very much, Kendra, and we'll see you back again really soon. All right. So if we can swoosh. Folks, sometimes Kendra, Dr. Taylor. I like giving folks put a lot of work in earning their PhD. Dr. Taylor is brilliant, and I hate that we had some technical issues and it made the dialogue a little more challenging today. But I encourage you. In fact, Amanda, Chantel, Catherine, Clay, you name it. If we can drop that link directly to the Informs research in the comments, I really appreciate that. And if you can also, if we don't have it, I think we've got Kendra's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. You gotta connect with her, and I love the work she's doing. So, but Ginny, let's bring you back into the conversation. I'd love to get your thoughts on some of what you heard there from Dr. Taylor.
Yeah, I was just going to say that for my sins or whatever, my ignorance, I wasn't aware of Informs. So yet again, this is another thing that Supply Chain Now has opened my eyes into, and the wealth of information that is on that website is enormous. There's just something. I switched off at the math bit, when it started getting too many numbers, but really the information that's there is huge. So I highly recommend anybody who didn't know about it to go onto it. But really, it's that sort of work that gives, I think I said it earlier, gives people like me the facts with which to be able to have a conversation with people who need to know more and do better.
Right.
And so, people like Dr. Taylor just are, I don't know, angels in disguise, I guess, doing the hard work.
Agreed. Angels in disguise. We have our episode title. Kelly, your thoughts?
Well, what I was actually thinking about, because we shared the information very early on that Atlanta was an enormous hub for this problem. And I will vouch for you guys. Everybody in Atlanta that I've worked with seems very nice. So it's not because the people in Atlanta are the issue, but when we look at this as supply chain professionals, it's sort of this corollary thought to keep in our minds. Any place that is really busy for any reason, because we typically think of busy, we talked about the increased number of shipping containers, right, coming in through that port. Any place that's really busy, that is also where the nefarious stuff is going to happen. And so you can't, what's the expression? You can't boil the ocean, but you don't actually have to. Any place that's busy, whether it's, rail, freight, ocean, air, any sort of hub like that has an unusually high volume compared to the rest of whatever system it happens to be in, is probably going to be the hotbed for problems as well. So it's kind of an interesting way to think about where we might start if we're trying to root out some of these issues. If we know there's something, whether it's products or services, that we are sourcing or is coming in through a particularly busy port, or is warehoused outside of Atlanta, for instance,
right?
That's a place to be a little bit more aware.
Agreed. Let me share a couple of quick comments here as we start to wrap up today's show. And again, my apologies for the technical issues that happens from time to time. Again, we definitely want to encourage you to check out, connect with Dr. Kendra C Taylor, KEYfficiencies, and the great folks over at Informs are doing such great work. This could be Korai, I'm not sure. Folks, let me know. He or she says supply chain mapping helps to understand the current state of the internal and external supply chain. Excellent point there. That is Amanda Russo. Amanda, great to see you. Great to have you here today. Great point here. T Squared, who holds down the fort for us on YouTube, says visibility
Yes.
with a touch of transparency is the game here. Good point. Memory says we need to use small incremental steps to broaden the scope and confidence of our change strategies through continuous improvement. Excellent point there. As I mentioned, we shared the link to the Informs data there. You can click on that. What a huge library, as Ginny was saying. Jason says, sounds like a new degree program and career position to create called a supply chain ethics engineer. I kind of like that. Kind of rings in my ears. Mohib kind of agrees. He says, I wonder if there is any certificate like quality/ISO for ethical purchasing for companies in their supply chain. This would boost accountability as well as growth. And I would add the tool set for attacking and making gains, right? And then finally, Yako. I think I was mispronouncing his front name. It's Yako, right? I got to pronounce that J-Lo differently. Yako, great to see you. He says, we are seeing it in the South African agricultural industry, although in our case, on the welfare of animals and sustainable farming. The process is audited by an independent authority and recorded on the blockchain. Best of all, the farmers get a premiere on their products for doing the right thing. Folks, if we can help folks make more money by doing the right thing, that is a big part of the path moving forward. Kelly, let's get your response and maybe your favorite thing you heard here today. And then Ginny, I'm going to circle back to yours as well. Kelly?
I think that my favorite thing that I heard, based on all of these ideas that everybody has brought forward, is that there's something that every single one of us watching this conversation or listening to it later can do. Anybody in procurement, supply chain, finance, operations, right? Every single person, there is some decision in your workflow where you have an opportunity to evaluate. And it might be as simple as asking a question: where do you get this from? Who do you buy this for? What's your source of labor?
Right.
Asking the question might be the action that you take, but there's something that all of us can do.
I love that. Anything but lip service, right? Taking that action.
That's right.
Taking that action. Ginny, your favorite thing you heard here today?
Is basically that we're having this conversation. And I think that that's the most important thing. And that, to Kelly's point, it mustn't just be lip service. We have to keep on having the conversation, but not just talk about it. We each of us have to do something about it. No matter how small. It starts with me. It starts with you.
I love that, Ginny. How very true. And again, as consumers, we've got to, whether we're talking human trafficking, modern slavery, whether we're talking sustainability, returns, the tidal wave of returns, which isn't good for anybody. It's those steps we can take, we can own to help drive change and improvement. All right. So if we could, so Dr. Sally Eaves could not join us here today. That stinks because, gosh, her and Kendra in a conversation with Kelly and Ginny, man, we had like an all-star panel here today. But if we can, Amanda, one of the things we were going to talk with Sally about in particular was a really well-received article she published in December, again, focused on DEI and some best practices, new thoughts there. If we can drop the link to her article there in the comments, just to give folks the option, I would greatly appreciate it. And Johnny, on the spot, you already knocked it out. Thanks so much, Amanda. Okay, so Kelly Barner and Ginny Froome, as we start to wrap here today, a couple of actions to take. Again, check out supplychainprocurementawards.com. We'd love to get you all involved in our effort to not only celebrate good news across global industry, but much more importantly, is to help Hope for Justice and their action-driven programming to eradicate modern slavery and human trafficking. You can take the simple, small step of nominating a company and use those fees to help further Hope for Justice. So check that out, supplychainprocurementawards.com. The site, again, for Africa Supply Chain Excellence Awards, Ginny, that site is
www.ascea.co.za.
Yes.
ZA.
ZA. I love that.
ZA.
All right. So y'all get, those are ways you can take, in addition to asking the questions, as Kelly mentioned earlier, which I love that. In addition to being a more conscious consumer, I think there's a group out there called Conscious Consumerism, I believe. But regardless, being more conscious and present in how you're voting with your dollars and what you're supporting directly or indirectly. But also check out those initiatives. All right. So Kelly Barner, we'll start with you as we sign off. 2 quick questions. First off, what's to come with Dial P, and how can folks connect with the one and only Kelly Barner?
So I'll start with that. That's easier. LinkedIn, please, or you can visit me at buyersmeetingpoint.com. I actually have a great treat to kick off the year with Dial P. Karaya Kosei, who is judging at the Supply Chain and Procurement Awards and who is also with us here today, has brought a friend of his, Rick, who is incredibly experienced in digital transformation and disruption in very meaningful ways. So I'm going to speak with the two of them about
Ric Flair? Is that Ric Flair?
Oh, wouldn't you love that? No, not Ric Flair. Although having Ric Flair come talk about digital transformation would actually be really kind of interesting and different,
cool.
right? But no, we're going to have a really interesting conversation about de-hyping and taking some of the things that Karai and Rick have both learned through their various work and kind of bringing it down to a level where we can do some very real things through changing language, changing our mindset, changing process to make the most of the technology that's available to us today.
Nice. More about the hype cycle and de-hyping. I love that.
De-hyping, yes.
Yeah, Ric Flair is definitely not one. He's all hype with Rick. So
I'll hype all the time.
That's right. Well, hey, love what Dial P for Procurement's up to. Love what y'all are doing over at Buyers Meeting Point and Art of Procurement. So stay tuned. And folks, you can find Dial P for Procurement wherever you get your podcast. Find it and subscribe so you don't miss anything. Ginny, now you are doing a ton of really cool stuff at SAPICS. I think your annual conference has already been published, right?
Yes.
And you're crossing your fingers, I think, because we're hoping it's back in person this year. Is that right?
Probably more than anything else at the moment. That's our dear wish. 12th to the 15th of June. We want to be in Cape Town and we want to be together. It's been way too long, and we're watching in America the events that are going on with sort of slightly green tinges because it's also we're jealous, cautious, all the rest of it. But that's our big focus. That and the awards are the industry awards here in Africa are our big focus.
Love it. Really enjoyed our conversation on our last podcast focused on supply chain leadership across Africa with. I cannot remember Azuka's last name.
Okeke.
Oh, yes. Okeke. Fascinating. Well-received episode. Check that out. And Ginny, what can folks expect? Because we already have, I think, several other shows lined up, right?
Yeah, we do. We've got a really great supply chain professional coming up, MJ Schumacher, and we've got some stunning public health supply chain professionals who are going to be talking to us, as well as some real industry giants. So really casting the spotlight very brightly on these supply chain leaders in Africa.
Love it. You should narrate a book, Ginny. I could listen to you tell stories all the time. How can folks connect with Ginny Froome?
Best place is LinkedIn, or as I always say, I'm very active on Twitter. Love Twitter. It suits my attention span. So it's literally Jenny Froome, like room, but with an F and an F at the beginning and an E at the end. It's very easy.
Love it. And she is a great, you got to follow Ginny Froome on Twitter for sure. But hey, most importantly, you got to connect with Ginny and Kelly. Definitely connect with them on LinkedIn. Wonderful, wonderful people and leaders doing big things out in the industry. As our two guests, be sure to connect with Kendra C Taylor, PhD, on LinkedIn and the sites we dropped earlier. And of course, Sally Eaves, PhD, also a great individual to follow on Twitter. Sally lights up that Twitter feed. I love it. All right. So folks, we've run the gamut here, and every show, no two shows are the same. And sometimes everything works with no hitch, without a hitch. And other times we hit our head, bang our head on the wall because Murphy's Law bites us from a technology standpoint. It goes with the territory. But hey, I'm so glad Kendra C Taylor, PhD, was able to stop in and share some of her highly valuable, purpose-driven work. Y'all take action, connect with her in those sites. Big thanks to my fearless co-host here today, Kelly Barner with Dial P for Procurement and Ginny Froome with SAPICS and our series, Supply Chain Leadership across Africa. Whatever you do, folks, whatever you do, there's going to be obstacles and speed bumps, and we can't do that. We've never done that. It's going to be all kinds of that. You got to keep driving forward, one step at a time. Embrace the responsibility that we as consumers have, and be like Kelly Barner and Ginny Froome and Dr. Taylor. Do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. On that note, we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.